Thank you. Please be seated. Good morning.
Good morning, Judge.
Today is September 15, 2022. This is another day of trial in the case of State of Ohio plaintiff versus George Washington Wagner IV, case number 2018 CR 155. The defendant is present in court with John Parker and Richard Nash as lawyers. The state is represented by prosecuting attorney Rob Junk and special prosecuting attorneys Angela Canepa and Andrew Wilson. Also Ryan Scheiderer with Ohio BCI and I, special agent with that agency, is present in court. One matter that's come to the attention of the court was that there was a motion filed this morning entitled Motion to Take Judicial Notice, Motion 110, Defense Motion 110. So the court would just make inquiry about how counsel proposes that we handle hearing on that motion and when.
We were just served with it this morning. If we
Right.
could just have a little bit to kind of look at it. We've been spending our time this morning getting set up for the presentation. So if we could just have a few minutes, maybe we'll address it later.
Yeah.
Or a day or two.
I'm sorry?
Or a day or two. It's just
Yeah,
not certain.
yeah.
I just found out
Well,
at this
that's
moment.
really what the court's inquiring about is when we need to schedule this. We can take some time to schedule it unless there's some urgency in scheduling that. I'm not sure whether this is. This would probably be a request that if it were granted that the court so instruct the jury. So I'm not sure that it needs to be decided immediately, but it's something that.
It does
Your
not,
Honor,
Your Honor.
I think the sooner the better, only because we've had a recent issue on this, and I think a delay on that notice. In other words, I just think the timing of this would be better if it were closer to, especially with the cross-examination yesterday. But moving beyond asking the court to take judicial notice, as I've noted in the motion, on June 21st, the state of Ohio and the defense stipulated that the address is in Scioto County. And so I guess we're falling back on judicial notice as a second, but I'd like for the court to recognize that the parties did stipulate that that address is in Scioto County. And
Well,
so
that-
that may resolve it here this morning.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's I saw that you had argued that there, and frankly, I'm not sure what the record shows about any stipulations. But now, Mr. Junk, you were going to say something.
Yes, Your Honor, we'd like to have a chance to digest this and review the record before we're prepared to respond to this. And in any event as well, too, as far as the jurisdiction and venue, it's going to be controlled by 290112 H 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Anyway, again, this is an urgent matter. It doesn't need to be get dealt with until a good ways down the road when we're looking at instructing the jury.
A portion of this, at least, was argued in Defense Motion 85. But as far as the stipulation, if there is one, is concerned, the court would have to review the record about whether that is there or not. But as a prosecutor argued there, I think that there are other venue provisions that the state would argue would apply anyway. But yeah.
If I may, Your Honor,
Yes.
we're not asking to revisit that motion to dismiss. We're not asking to dismiss the charges or that venue's not proper. We're simply addressing an issue that came up yesterday, a factual issue and evidence. And so, whatever the statute says in 2901 regarding venue is not an issue. We're just talking about the testimony that came out regarding that statement, and it's a stipulated fact here. So I just wanted to be clear with the state and the court. We're not asking to revisit Motion 85.
You're asking the court to make a factual determination and instruct the jury that way. I assume that's
Yes.
what you're asking for.
Yeah, and Judge, just to be clear, we're not withdrawing our previous motion. We're asking the court to revisit how we maintain our position on it. That it came up through the prosecutor's direct examination, with at least one witness, maybe two yesterday, about this issue. And so, if the state wants time to respond, they can, but they did stipulate previously, and we've provided the court with a certified copy of the public records that support our position.
And specifically, the address that you're dealing with, or that your motion mentions, is the 3122 Union Hill Road address.
That's correct, Your Honor.
So the court will schedule that with the council here for a hearing, but today we'll proceed with our trial. We'll give the state time to digest the motion and prepare a response to it.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right,
Judge.
Yes.
One other thing, if we could put on the record, we just want to make sure our continuing objection is noted to the pictures of the victims being projected onto the screens. I think all of the pictures have been identified by numerous witnesses. There's really no factual need, as far as I can anticipate, to revisit those issues. Those pictures are not going to be in dispute in this trial. So we would just ask that they not be projected on the screen if the state intends to use them today.
And I'm not sure what the state's response to that is. You want to give a response to it?
Your Honor, regarding the first three scenes, that there will be only minimal pictures, but it is important for the witnesses to describe if that is how they found the individuals at the time that they were the first ones into the scenes, and so they have to testify to that. Crime scene's going to come, but they were when they first entered, so that's why it's important. We certainly don't want to, overexpose anybody to these pictures, victim's family, jurors, anybody. But we're only doing what we feel is necessary evidentiary-wise.
Judge, we don't object to the jury having the information that they need, including hard copies of whatever photographs are the court admits. But what we're objecting to is the projection on these three big screens in the courtroom.
Well, we have this technology, and to the extent that the presentation of this allows the jury to see, putting it on a screen allows the jury all to see at one time the witnesses and understand better the witness's testimony, I'm going to overrule that objection and permit those to be put on the screen for the benefit of the jury.
And Judge, just to make the record clear, I don't want to interrupt all the proceedings with each picture, so that's a continuing objection that the court recognizes?
Yes, I'll recognize that as a continuing objection, and
Thank
the court
you.
overrules it. Now, is the state ready to proceed today?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is the defense ready to proceed?
Just one other issue I'd like to bring before the court. So far, it hasn't been critical, but there's been a manner in which I think documents have been presented to witnesses that's improper to refresh recollection. And so, as I said, it hasn't been critical, so there hasn't been a major need to address it, but I feel like it's going to be a continuing thing, so I want to bring at least Supreme Court precedents to the court, make the court aware of exactly how this procedure is to occur, that certainly a witness can refresh their recollection. Evidence Rule 612 permits that to happen. But the witness's memory must be exhausted first after the course of ordinary examination. So the manner in which this has been going through is somebody testifies and then a document is like, you wrote this document, right? Well, that's exactly what the Supreme Court says is not supposed to happen. There's supposed to be an exhaustion after examination that they cannot recall that fact. That's step one. And then, if they have exhausted that witness's memory and they cannot recollect that fact, okay, now it's proper to refresh their memory with the document. But moving on, we can't read it aloud to them, we can't have the witness read the document aloud, and we can't place it before the jury as well. And I think there's been at least one document that's been marked as an exhibit. I understand it hasn't been admitted, but both of these points that I'm making is Supreme Court precedents. And like I said, it hasn't been a major issue yet, but I see it as a continuing course of conduct. I kind of want to make the court aware of that we shouldn't be going down this road. That's it.
All right.
And at least on the first case that I told you about, that that we must exhaust the memory of the witness before we go there, that's State v. Scott, 31 Ohio State 2nd, 1, and that is on pages 5 and 6. And then where we must not read the statement aloud, have the witness read it aloud, or otherwise put it before the jury. That's State versus Beau. That's 1996 case. That's 76 Ohio State 3rd, 244. And that quote is on page 254. Thank you.
Well, does the state wish to?
Your Honor, we had the EMS, Miranda Cable, at the final witness, identify her run sheet because she wrote it out in her own handwriting. It's kept in a matter of course business, so it's a business record exception, first of all. I just had her identify it. He is correct. I did not move to admit it. At the time I do move to admit it, if we do, these arguments may be proper. But it was my recollection that she did not recall the exact time, and I asked her if it would help refresh her recollection, and she said yes. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. The other incident I can recall, and there may be other incidents that you're referring to, Mr. Nash, but the Officer Ball couldn't remember whether he had gloves on or not, and he reviewed that.
Yeah, and I believe Bobby Jo Manley had prepared a written report. She actually testified consistent what was within her statement. Nevertheless, the state gave her that document, had her read that document. It was exactly consistent with what her memory was when she testified, and I think they even marked it as an exhibit. It's that type of stuff that's improper, and that's what we're just bringing the attention to the court, that that shouldn't be happening.
In Bobby Jo Manley's you're referring to specifically then?
That's one of them, but
Were
yes,
there
again,
others?
I sense this is a continuing course with every witness, and we even talked about what type of shoes were you wearing. Well, here, let me refresh your recollection. We didn't even exhaust that witness's memory if they could tell what they were wearing. And so I'm just bringing it to the attention of the court so when it happens, I don't have to go through this again at a sidebar.
All right. You don't need to object at a sidebar, though. You can object from the...
I will, and now I don't need to make the argument at the sidebar. The court will know what the objection is.
Okay. Anything further before we bring the jury in then?
No, thank you, Judge.
Anything further from the state?
Not on behalf of the state or anything.
All right. Bring the jury in. You may be seated. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good to see you all here. Let me just ask the jury here, this morning, do you have any difficulties or problems that you wish to report? Any problems at all that the court needs to be aware of? All right, good. Hearing none then. Is the state ready to call another witness?
Yes, we are, Your Honor. We would like to call Darryl Hart to the stand.
Darryl Hart. The state may call its next witness.
The state will be calling Donald Stone to the stand.
Before sitting down, I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer unto God?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may be seated. And the state may examine.
Good morning, how are you? Okay. I'm going to ask you to say your name, and I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up. I have a problem keeping my voice too low, and I know you do too. So as much as you can, yeah, and as close as you can get to the microphone, that helps so that you don't necessarily have to speak loudly. It will amplify your voice, okay? So go ahead and tell us your name, please.
Donald Stone,
Okay? And Donald, how old are you?
50.
Okay. Are you married?
Yes,
And do you and your wife live together?
yes.
Okay. Do you have children?
I have 4 children from another lady.
Okay. Do you have grandchildren?
Yes,
Okay. Are you currently working?
no,
Okay. Did you previously work?
yes.
Okay. And what kinds of things did you do?
I did heating and cooling for Mark Blakeman.
Heating and cooling for whom?
Mark Blakeman,
Okay. And how long did you do that for?
12 years.
Okay. And was that the last job that you had?
Yeah,
Okay. And before we go any further, you have gloves on your hands.
yes.
Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, I have a skin condition.
Okay, all right. Mr. Stone, can you tell us, without giving us the address, where approximately do you live?
I live at Pike County.
Okay. And can you tell me, do you know Kenneth Rhoden?
Yes, I do.
And how do you know Kenneth Rhoden?
He's my cousin.
Okay. And how are you related? I mean, which one of, is it your mother or father or?
His mother and my father was brothers and sisters.
His mother and your father
Yes,
are siblings? Okay. Some cousins are close, some aren't. Would you consider yourself to have been close to Kenneth?
real close.
Okay, and tell us about that.
Just, any time that I was down and out, the man was there to help me.
How long would you say that you had a close relationship with him? Like from childhood or later in life, or,
from childhood.
okay. And how often would you say you saw each other growing up?
Mm, it's just, you know, here and there, you know.
Was there ever a time where you guys lived on the same road also?
It's actually, we didn't live on the same road. We just, you know, we were close at one time.
Okay. Did you ever, you lived physically close to him?
Yes.
Okay. And where was that?
I lived on Meadow Run and he lived on Miller's Lane.
Okay. He lived on Miller's Lane and you lived where?
On Meadow Run,
Okay. And those are close to one another?
yes.
Okay. And do you recall approximately how long that was for?
Mm, I'd say a good 10 years.
Okay. And was he married at the time?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know who he was married to?
Stacy Rigsby,
Okay. And did they have children?
yes.
And do you know the names of those children?
Yes.
And what is that?
Tajana, Luke, and Kendra.
And at some point, did Kenneth move away from that location?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know why he moved away?
No.
Okay. Did his wife and children remain at that location, do you know?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us what kinds of things would you and Kenneth do together?
It just, like if he needed something worked on or whatever, we did that together. Cars,
Would you guys go to auctions together?
Yes.
And buy
Yeah.
cars
yeah,
and then work on them?
yeah,
Okay. Fix them up and sell them, or?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you know that he was living out on Left Fork Road?
not at the time, no.
Okay. Had you ever been out to his house before?
One time,
One time?
yes.
Okay. And do you recall what that was for?
I was working on one of his cars.
Okay. Did you go inside the residence at that time?
No,
Do you recall, in relation to the day that you, that these events happened, do you recall how long prior to that had you been at his house?
it was it was probably, I don't know, a few weeks or so
Okay,
before we went to the auction.
okay. So you had gone to an auction?
Yes,
Okay. A few weeks prior?
yes,
Okay. And did you buy anything at the auction that time?
no.
Did he buy anything
He
at the auction?
bought the,
You bought the vehicle?
yes.
And that's the one that you went over to work on?
No, I worked on a car before the auction.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I'm mixing this up. You previously went over there to work on a car that had nothing to do with the car that Kenneth bought at the auction a few weeks
No,
prior?
no.
Okay, that's just the last time that you saw him, was at the auction?
Yes,
Okay. Do you have any recollection of what kind of car he bought at the auction that day?
no, I don't remember.
Can you tell us, Mr. Stone, at the time, back in April of 2016, were you still working at that time for the heating and cooling company?
Mm, I believe I was.
Okay. And can you tell us, well, how did you learn that something had happened up on Union Hill Road?
Well, I was at a HUD appointment that morning, and I had talked to a gentleman while I was there, and he asked me if I heard what happened on Union Hill. And then after my HUD appointment, I went back home, and that's when I tried making phone calls.
Okay. So you were at a HUD appointment, is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, and somebody asked you, somebody that worked there or another person?
Yes.
Somebody that worked there, okay. And you said then once you were back home, you made some phone calls. Who did
Yes.
you call? Do you recall?
Well, I tried to call Kenneth's phone,
Okay.
and then I tried to call Luke's phone, no answer. Luke Rhoden.
Okay.
And then, once I got word that there was some people meeting at a church, we had went to the church,
Okay. And where was the church?
Union Hill.
Okay. Just kind of across 32 from where
Yeah.
the family lived?
Yes,
And did you know Chris Rhoden as well?
yes,
Okay. And all of the rest of the siblings?
yes,
You knew them as well. You were just closer to Kenneth because of living near him and such?
yes.
Okay. Had you ever been up to Chris Rhoden's residence on Union Hill Road?
Just one time, I had to work on a truck for Kenneth.
Okay. And tell me about that. Was Kenneth living there at that time?
No, he wasn't living on Union Hill, no.
Okay. But he had a truck up there?
Yes,
That he wanted you to work on?
yes.
Okay. And when you worked on that, where on the property did you work on it?
It was at Chris Senior's,
Seniors?
yes.
Okay. Did you know Frankie and Hannah Mae and little Chris as well?
Yes,
Okay. So you went to the church on Union Hill Road, and who all was there?
it's just, there was a lot of people there, the family, I mean, there was a lot of people there.
Okay. If you had to guess approximately how many?
150 people,
150? Okay. And I imagine there was a lot of information, a lot of talking going on?
yes,
Okay. And a lot of consulting. At what point did you learn how many had been killed on Union Hill Road?
actually, I hadn't known at the time how many there were for sure.
Okay. Some mixed information?
Yes,
Okay. Was there a point, you indicated that you tried to call Kenneth that one time, and that was from your home after the HUD appointment?
yes,
Okay. Did you personally ever try to call Kenneth
Yeah.
after that?
yes. Well, it was, when I tried to make the phone calls, I did try to call him once.
Okay. And while you were at the church, did there become some concerns about Kenneth not responding to phone calls?
Yeah,
Okay. And can you tell us, did you decide to go to Kenneth's at some point?
yeah, well, we was at the church, and Luke mentioned that he wanted to go to his dad's place, and he asked me if I wanted to go, and we went.
Okay. were you aware as to whether he also had tried to call his father?
No, I wasn't aware.
Okay. And so you and Luke went. Did anybody else go with
Yeah,
you?
yes,
Who else went?
Sean Watson.
Okay. And who's Sean?
Sean is my cousin also.
Okay. Do you remember what vehicle you took or who drove?
We took my stepdaughter's car,
Okay.
and Sean Watson drove.
Okay. Do you know where Kenneth was working at the time?
He was working in Columbus.
Okay. Do you know how long he had been working there?
No,
Okay. And you got to, did you go to Kenneth and what did you do once you got there?
we got there, we got out of the car. We walked up to the door, me and Luke. And once we got to the door, I told him, I said, "This is your dad's place, you need to go in first." And he went in first and I followed him.
Okay. And can you tell us, first of all, where was Sean at this time?
Sean was down by the car.
Okay. So he did not walk up to the property with you or
No,
enter the
no.
residence? Where did you guys park?
We parked behind the truck, Kenny's truck.
Okay. And you know Kenny's truck?
Yes,
Okay. When you walked up to the residence, did you notice, was the door unlocked?
yes,
Okay. So you walked into the residence together, and you said Luke was there first, but then you, and then what happened?
and then we walked in. We walked into the, supposedly the living room, and I noticed to the right, I didn't see him in there nowhere, so I seen a stairway to the right, and I walked up the stairway, and that's where I found him up there in his bed.
Okay. And when you say you found him, who did you find?
I found Kenny.
Can you tell us what condition you found him in?
He had blood all over his eyes.
And where was he located?
In his bed.
Okay. Did you believe him to be dead or alive at that time?
He was dead.
Go. Kelly?
Um, sorry. Was it just you that walked up those stairs and saw Kenneth?
Yes,
Okay. When you saw him, first of all, did you touch him at all?
no,
Okay, so you did not touch the bed at all or move anything?
no.
Okay. What did you do then?
We went straight back out the door.
Okay. And then what did you do?
We, well, when we was out on the porch, Luke asked me if I could help him get some of his, some things, and then we walked out to the building. He wanted us to walk out to the building. He thought maybe somebody might have been in the building.
Okay. And where was the building located?
Located outside the camper, beside the camper.
Okay. And did you ever enter that building yourself?
Just opened the door.
Okay. And was there anybody in there?
No,
Okay. And did you see anything in there in the building itself?
just marijuana.
Okay. So there was marijuana in that building?
Yes.
Okay. Did you touch or move anything in that building?
No.
Okay. And prior to that moment, did you know that there was marijuana in that building?
No.
Okay. Then what did you do?
After I left the building, we went out to the end of the driveway, and I tried to call 911. I couldn't, so I had to drive up the road to call 911.
Okay. So was it you personally trying to call 911?
Yes.
Okay. And you said you couldn't. Why couldn't you?
Every time I would try, it would default my call. It would kick my call off.
Okay. So you weren't getting good cell phone service?
No.
Okay. And so you said you went up the road. Were you walking at this point or driving?
We drove.
You drove, okay. And when you exited when you first went to the end of the driveway, were you driving at that point? Like you had gotten back in the vehicle?
We got back in the vehicle and backed out of the driveway.
Okay, all right. And how far up the road did you have to go before you could make a call?
A good 1,000, 1,500 feet.
Okay. And then, was it you again that made the phone call?
Yes.
911?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you tell them?
I called them and told them that I'd found Kenneth Rhoden dead in his home.
Okay. All right. And then, did you stay there and wait for them to come?
Yes.
Police? Okay. Were you there when the police arrived?
Yes.
Did you ever go back into that location?
No.
Into his house?
No.
Or any of the structures on the
No.
property? Okay. Yeah, okay, I guess, yes. Mr. Stone, I'm going to have them play the 911 call that you made that day. I just want you to listen to it, and then afterwards I'll ask you if you recognize it, okay?
Your Honor, for the record, I'm gonna play this external hard drive. It's got an exhibit sticker on it. Outside the exhibit sticker says video and audio on it. Inside the hard drive, there are folders. There's a folder marked O, 911 calls. This will be State's Exhibit 02.
Sabrina.
Yep.
911 call. Conversation recorded on April 22nd, 2016 at 13:26 on channel 1. There's Pike County, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah,
This is 911. Can I help you?
yeah, I need a deputy to come out to close to 799 West 4th.
Okay.
All this stuff that's on the news. I just found my cousin with a gunshot wound.
Okay. Sir, is he alive?
No.
Okay. You're at 799 West 4th?
It's close to 799. I don't know what his address is. You don't have a box.
You don't have a box. Okay.
I'll be standing out by the red waiting on him.
What's your name, sir?
Donald Stone.
Donald Stone?
Donald Stone.
Stone?
Yeah, I'm his cousin.
What's his name?
Kenneth Rhoden.
Kenneth Rhoden?
Yeah.
Okay, sir, are you out of the house?
I'm out of the house right now. I just went in, hollered at him, and checked right now. And I looked up at him, he had a gunshot wound.
Okay, sir, we're gonna get deputies out there to you, okay? All right. Good morning. End of recording.
Do you recognize that phone call?
Yes,
Okay. And is that the 911 call that you made that afternoon on April 22nd, 2016?
yes,
Okay. Mr. Stone, you indicated on the 911 call that you believed it was a gunshot wound. What made you say that?
it's just, there's extremely a lot of blood all over his face.
And you indicated on the 911 call that you hollered at Kenneth when you entered the residence? Okay.
Yes,
While you were waiting, was there an individual that arrived on a four-wheeler looking for things in trees?
yes,
Okay. Did you know that person?
yes.
Okay. And what was his name?
Brett Hatfield.
Okay. And at the time, did you know what he was looking for?
No, I did not.
Okay. And what did you tell him?
I told him that if he's planning on taking anything from there, to not be doing it because I called 911.
Okay. And you said you stayed there until the police arrived, correct?
Yes.
And once the police arrived, what happened?
And once the police arrived, then they turned around and told me to come with them and put me in the cruiser and handcuffed me.
They handcuffed you
Yes,
and put you in the cruiser? Okay. And did they ultimately take you down to the police station to be interviewed?
yes,
Okay. And did they take anybody else to be interviewed?
and they took Luke.
Okay. Did they ever take your fingerprints or DNA or anything from you?
No,
that day?
no.
Okay. And did they take any of your clothing or anything else?
No,
Okay. And you indicated you did not touch anything in there?
No.
Is that correct? Okay. Donald, when Kenneth Rhoden lived on Miller's Lane, did you ever know him to grow marijuana?
yes,
Okay, and where did he grow marijuana at that location?
I'm back in the field.
Back in the field? Okay. Did you ever know him to have an indoor grow at
No.
that location?
No,
Okay. Mr. Stone, I'm going to put up a series of photographs. I'm going to start with just the outside of the camper and stuff. It's going to be displayed on the screen above your head, but it's also going to be displayed right there. So you can look at the pictures that are close to you.
okay.
And then I'll just ask you questions. State's Exhibit D1, which is 1872. Do you recognize that location?
Yes,
And what do you recognize that as?
Kenneth Rhoden's place.
Okay. 1888, which is State's Exhibit D17. And is that Kenneth's Place again?
Yes,
Okay, and do you recognize any of the vehicles in that location?
yes.
And what do you recognize them as?
All three of those are Kenny's trucks.
Okay. And when you pulled into that location, then you would have been just behind those vehicles
Yes,
initially?
yes.
Okay. And then 1896, which is State's Exhibit D25. Again, that's just a closer up view there, but is that one of Kenneth's trucks?
Yes,
Okay. And in the background there, is that the residence that you entered?
yes.
Um, 1919, D48. It appears there's another camper off to the left there of the residence. Was that also on Kenneth's property?
Yes,
D50, which is 1921. Okay, and what all do you see in that photo?
I see the building.
And is that the building that had the marijuana in it?
Yes,
Okay. And D86, which is 957. Again, is that the building that had the marijuana in it?
yes.
Okay. Did you notice any cameras at that location?
No, I did not.
Okay. D89, 1960. And does that appear to be a camera on that building?
Yes,
Okay, you did not notice that at the time?
no.
Okay. And then D90, which is 1961. You can probably see it better than the jurors can, but does there appear to be a camera there to the left
Yes,
of the door?
yes.
Okay, and again, you did not notice that on
No,
that day?
no.
Okay. Which is D128. And do you recognize that?
Yes,
And what do you recognize that as?
Kenny's Place.
I should, D133, which is 2004. Mr. Stone, there appears to be a lock on the porch there. Do you recall seeing that at all at the time?
Yes.
Okay. And was that how it was when you first arrived there?
Yes.
Okay. D138, which is 2010. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what is that?
That's inside the home.
Okay, and that's when you first walk in there,
Yeah.
that front door? D139, 2011. And again, is that the area when you first walk in?
Yes.
Okay. D163, which is 2035. It's so hard to see that. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that as?
That's Kenny's bed.
And do you remember when you walked into that room, which side of the bed would you have been on?
At the foot of it.
Okay. Showing you what's been marked as D 180, 2052, and should not publish. Do you recognize that photo?
Yes.
And can you tell us what you recognize that as?
It's where Kenny slept.
Okay. And is that how you saw Kenneth lying in his bed when you entered that residence?
Yes.
Okay. D187, which is 2059. Mr. Stone, can you look at that? I'm sorry. What do you recognize that as?
It's Kenny.
And is that how you saw him on that day?
Yes.
And you indicated that he had, does that match your recollection of the blood that you saw him?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. Did you get any closer than the foot of the bed?
No.
Okay. The items that were there, if you go back to sorry. D-185, I'm going to show the picture of the foot of the bed. There appears to be money, coins, keys, and a pair of pants there. Again, is that as you found it that day?
Yes.
Okay, and you did not touch any of those items?
No.
Okay. Put that down. And Mr. Stone, you exited that residence basically as soon as you saw?
Yes.
Okay, and Luke exited along with you?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Stone, I'm sorry. I'm going to ask you to step down if you don't mind. We're going to show this to the jury. We're going to do it in two parts so that both people can see it. You stand over here, those. This is D as in dog, 286. Do you recognize this location? Okay, and what is this location? Okay. And again, there are his vehicles. Can you tell us approximately where you would have been parked when you first got there? Okay, behind the middle truck?
Yes.
So like in this area
Yes.
here? Okay. And then once you went to the end of the driveway to call, you said then you went. Do you remember which direction you went? Okay, so you backed there and then went out the driveway here, okay. And then when you were waiting for the police, where were you? At the end? Okay, all right. Okay. Come back here, sorry. So again, if you can show them where you were parked when you first got there. Okay, and then when you exited, which direction did you go? Okay, and then where did you wait in the police? Okay, all right. Mr. Stone? Was there a dog at Kenneth's house?
Yes.
And did you know the dog's name?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. And was the dog normally inside or outside when you had been there prior? Do you recall?
When I was there prior,
Yeah,
he was outside.
okay. And what about on this day?
He's inside.
Okay. And so when you entered the residence, he was inside?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember where?
Right by the door.
Right by the door? Okay.
Yes.
Had he barked at all or anything?
Nothing.
Okay. And did he go outside then,
Yes.
the residence? Okay. And did you ever know the Wagners?
No.
And would you describe the Rhodens as a close-knit family?
Yes.
Okay. And what makes you say that?
It's just, you know, their mother fed me when I was young, and they're just helpful people. It'd help anyone.
And did they also look out for one another?
Yes, they did.
And would you say that they would protect each other
Yes.
if something happened to one of them? They would
Oh,
come
yes,
to-
yes.
I have another question, Your Honor.
The defense may cross-examine.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Stone, I understand these are some tough questions. Do you need a minute to collect yourself, or are you okay to go forward?
I'm good.
Okay. I want to go over the answers that you had just given the prosecutor. I just need some more detail on that, okay? And when I ask you questions, I'll need you to answer out loud, all right?
Okay.
All right, thank you. My understanding is you were at the church on Union Hill Road and you left there to go to Kenneth's, is that right?
Yes.
And who went with you?
Luke and Sean Watson.
And Sean Watson?
Yes.
And you guys all rode in one vehicle?
Yes.
What kind of vehicle is that?
It's a little yellow car. I don't know what the name of it was.
A car.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And so there's an exhibit here that you were shown a picture, and I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit D-286. Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Thank you. And so, if I hold this here, can all of the jurors see this? Thank you. All right, Mr. Stone, do you recognize this exhibit that I have, or that has been marked as D-286?
Yes.
And what is this?
It's Kenneth's residence.
Okay. Are you able to point to actually where he lived? Because I see three different structures there. All right, so you're pointing to the middle one. And you would agree with me that this is a driveway going up to his camper, right?
Yes.
And when you guys drove there in that car, can you tell me where you parked? And you can point at that and get
Behind
up
the-
if you need to.
Behind the black truck.
Okay, so I see, do you mind to get up and point for me? Okay, so you can go ahead and sit down. I'm gonna point where you did, because I think you may have blocked some jurors. So right here, see where I'm pointing?
Yes.
That's a truck, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and you parked behind that truck.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me how far is the distance from where you parked, or where the vehicle in which you rode in, where it parked, and the front door of that camper?
I have no idea.
Okay. You couldn't even approximate in feet?
Mm,
But nevertheless, that car was parked here, and you would agree with me that the front door to that camper would be right there, is that
yeah,
right?
approximately 100 feet.
About 100 foot, okay. All right, thank you for that. Now, you were questioned by some BCI agents about this, is this right?
Yes.
In fact, you went down to the Pike County Sheriff's Department to answer those questions.
Yes,
And at some point in that questioning, you were asked whether or not you had taken anything from Ken's residence.
yes,
And you didn't, right?
right,
And you told them you didn't need to because Ken was well off, is that right?
yes,
And he would give you money anytime you needed it.
yes,
All right. And I also, during that questioning, on the day of your discovery of Ken, you were questioned about the marijuana, is that right?
yes,
And you had told that the BCI agent that you knew of Ken to traffic in marijuana, is that right?
yes.
All right. Now, in regard to that camper again, how many people went to that front door of that camper?
Just me and Luke Rhoden.
Okay. And so tell me again, who was first to enter?
Luke,
All right. And you followed in behind him, is that right?
yes,
Okay. And so both of you were there inside that camper?
yes,
And you just stayed at the foot of the bed, is that right?
yes.
All right. Just hold on one moment for me. Thank you, Mr. Stone. I have no further questions.
Any redirect with the state?
No, Your Honor.
All right,
I'm
you may
sorry.
step down. You may step down. We're going to take a 15-minute recess until 11 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, while you're in recess, do not discuss this case with anyone. Do not permit this case to be discussed with you or in your presence. Do not form or express an opinion concerning the case. Do no research concerning the case, either as to the facts or as to the law. Do not listen to, read, or view any reports or accounts of the case at all, and have no contact with any participants in the trial, including counsel, parties, and witnesses. In 15 minutes, which will make it 11 o'clock, assemble at the jury's room downstairs, and you'll be brought up by court personnel. Anything further from either counsel?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
All right, then we are in adjournment until 11. Everyone may be seated. Is the state ready to call its next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The state would call Luke Rhoden to the stand, please.
Luke Rhoden, Jason. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer unto God? All right, you may be seated there. And I believe that maybe move that monitor over your head. And the state may examine.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm okay.
Okay. You're already doing what I'm going to ask you to do, which is to make sure you're pretty close to that microphone. That helps everybody be able to hear when you're speaking today, okay?
Okay.
Can you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Luke Rhoden, R-H-O-D-E-N.
Okay. And how old are you?
30,
Okay. And where do you live, Luke?
70 Miller's Lane,
Okay. And do you live there with somebody or by yourself?
by myself.
Okay. And is that location where you grew up?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. And can you tell us, are you currently working?
No.
Okay. And can you tell us who is Kenneth Rhoden?
My father.
Okay. And how long were your parents married for?
Roughly 15 to 16 years.
Okay. Do you recall approximately how old you were when they got a divorce?
I want to say around 14 or 15 years old.
Okay. Do you have siblings?
Yes, I have a sister, Tatiana, a sister, Kendra, and a brother is deceased.
Okay. And what happened to your brother?
Died of cancer.
And how do you come in the lineup there of your siblings? Who's the oldest, who's the youngest?
My sister, Tatiana, my brother, Austin, then me, then Kendra.
Okay. How old was your brother when he passed?
He was 7.
And after your parents divorced, where did you live at that time?
Still living with my mother at the time,
Okay, and who is your mother?
Stacy.
Okay. And so you and the other children were still living at that location?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us, did your father and your mother maintain a good relationship after they divorced?
Yes, it did.
Would you say that your father was involved in your lives?
Yes.
Okay. And did he support you in your endeavors?
Yes.
Okay. And specifically, just prior to his death, had he given you some support?
Right. Check to take up to Trucking Academy to go to school for trucking.
Okay. And do you remember when that was?
That was the day before everything had happened, 21st of April. He gave it to me to take up there. That night he called me to make sure that I got it up there and everything was squared away with that.
Do you have a recollection of approximately what time that was that he called you?
I want to say around 9 o'clock or something like that.
Okay. And did he provide the same kind of support to the rest of your sisters and brother?
Yes.
And how often would you see him, would you say, through the week?
I'd say at least 3 or 4 times a week.
And how far away is Miller's Lane from where he was living on Left Fork?
It's probably maybe like a 20, 25-minute drive.
Okay. And do you know where he was working at that time?
U.S. Utilities in Columbus.
Okay. And do you know how long he had worked there?
For 2 to 3 years, I do believe.
Has he always worked?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you know what kinds of things he did prior to working at U.S. Utilities?
Yeah, before U.S. Utilities, he was an iron worker. Before that, he was driving dozer and backhoes. Then before that, he did about 15, 16 years at Crown Over Lumber.
You say Carter Lumber?
Crown Overs.
Oh, sorry, okay. Did you know his habits when he was working at US Utilities in Columbus? Like, what he would do in the morning prior to going to work?
Sometimes he'd wake up and take a shower at his brother Chris's.
Okay.
If he didn't need a shower or whatever beforehand, he'd just get up, he'd head to Columbus and go to work.
Okay. And he would work in the mornings there?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you say that your dad had a close relationship with his siblings?
Yes.
Okay. And would you say he was particularly close to Chris?
Yes.
And where was your dad living at that time?
He was living down Left Fork.
Okay, and do you know how long he had lived there?
I want to say probably 3 or 4 years, something like that. I'm not real sure.
Okay. Where did he live prior to that? Do you know?
Prior to that, he lived out on Union Hill at the Yellow House.
Okay. The yellow house that sits to the left of Chris's trailer?
Yeah.
If you're facing Chris's trailer?
Yeah, if you're facing it, it'd be on the left, yeah.
Okay, all right. But he moved out of that location?
Yeah, he moved out of that location, and I think he moved down there for a split moment down on Left Fork where his brother Brady lived at this time now. Then he moved down to where he is now.
Okay. And that's property that he owned, right?
Right.
The family owned?
Yeah, I think Chris and my dad went and bought that piece of land he was living on.
Okay. And you said his other brother Brady lived nearby?
Yes, he
Okay.
lived close.
Okay. On Left Fork Road as well?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us, did you ever know your father to grow marijuana?
Yes.
And how did you know that?
He's my father. I was around him.
Okay, all right. And did you know if he was growing marijuana at Left Fork Road?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and did you know where?
Yes, I did.
And where was that?
That was in the bottom of the shack that was sitting on the property.
Okay. And did you ever help your father with that?
Yes, I have. I helped him trim.
Okay. When you lived on Miller's Lane, were you ever aware of your father growing marijuana
Not till later on in the years.
later on in the years?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever know the Wagners?
Not a lot.
Okay. Can you tell us what contact, if any, did you have with, let's say, Jake Wagner?
There was a time that him and Hannah came over to Miller's Lane one time, and he was talking to me about getting a tattoo.
Okay. How many other times would you say you encountered Jake Wagner?
I think I met him out there at Chris's once before,
Okay.
and one time we went swimming down there in Brady's Pond, back behind his place there,
Okay.
and I can't really remember any other times.
Okay. And what about George Wagner?
I think I met him one time, and that was the time we went swimming down Brady's Pond.
The same time that you had seen Jake?
Right,
Okay. So there's a pond behind your Uncle Brady's
correct,
place? Okay. There on Left Fork Road?
yes.
And do you recall who all went swimming at that time?
I know it was me, Hannah, Jake, George, I think it was his woman, and I think a couple other people. I can't really recollect who it was.
But that's the only time you encountered George Wagner?
Right.
Okay. And what about Billy Wagner?
Yeah, one time we was out at his property one time. It was the one that's pretty far off the grid. And my dad and Chris loaned him the backhoe for him to do something. And he went out to start the backhoe up, and the backhoe wouldn't start, so he got a hold of my dad and Chris. They brought out some tarps and space heater and all that to get the backhoe warmed up in order to get it started. And I was standing there on the trailer, and he was standing beside me, and he said, he looked at me and said, "You see those two people?" He said, "They're some really good people." He said, "But if I ever had to fuck with them, that they had to shoot them."
If they ever had to what?
Mess with him, if he had to tussle with him, whatever, that he'd had to shoot him.
Did he explain why that was, or did he say anything more?
No, that was it.
But he was telling you that they were really great people
Yeah,
first?
right.
Okay. And you said he brought out a heater. Was it cold time of year?
Yeah, it was. I can't really remember what time of the year it was, but I do know it was cold.
Okay.
They had to bring out a kerosene space heater, put it underneath the tarp, and get everything heated up.
Okay. And you said it was off the grid. Did you have to go up a long hill to get up to it?
You pulled off the road there, and it's like I don't know, probably about a mile back in there, and down a gravel road type deal, dirt, gravel.
Okay. Taking you to, well, let me ask you this. Did you know Frankie Rhoden?
Yes,
Obviously. And were you close with him?
I was closer to him when I was younger, but I was still as close to him when we got older.
Okay. And did you know that Frankie did derby car racing?
Yes,
Okay. Did you ever go with him or watch him or
Yes.
anything? Or did you ever participate in that, or?
yes,
Okay. And what about chicken fighting?
yes,
Okay, you knew that he did that?
yes,
Did you ever go with him when he would do that?
yes.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, where would those various places be?
There's a couple times we was out, went out to my buddy Curry out. It's like on the backside of Louisville.
Okay. And did you know Frankie to hunt?
Yes.
Did you ever go hunting with him?
No,
Okay. You don't hunt?
I do. I
Okay.
just didn't get to go with him. So
Okay. And you kind of already answered this, because I think you said you only met George Wagner that one time, but did you ever see George and Frankie together?
no,
Okay. taking you to April 22nd of 2016. Can you tell us when you first learned that there was something wrong?
My mom came into my bedroom and said that I needed to get up, and Chris and everybody out there shot up on the hill.
Chris and everybody was out there shot up on the hill?
Yeah.
Okay. Did she indicate to you how she knew that?
She received a phone call.
Okay. So what did you do at that time?
I got up, got dressed. We headed out towards the hill. We ended up at the church out there across from Union Hill.
Okay. And you said you headed up to the hill. You knew where Chris Sr. lived.
Right.
Obviously, because your father had lived on that same property for a long time.
Yeah.
And can you tell us which direction, did you try to go to their homes at all before you went to the church, or did you just go directly to the church?
We tried to go to their house, like the long way around up 772 and all that. We went that way, and we couldn't get down through there. So we ended up going out to the church after we figured out we wasn't able to get through.
Okay. And when you say you weren't able to get through, why weren't you able to get through?
It was all blocked off at the time.
Okay, blocked off by what?
Ambulance and I'm not real for sure. I think sheriff maybe. I'm not real sure.
Okay. Official vehicles that weren't letting you
Right.
go by.
Correct.
Okay. And when you come in that direction, whose house would you have arrived at first?
It would have been Frankie's.
Okay. And then do you know how you knew to go to the church?
Somebody came up and let us know that they was all meeting over at the church.
While you were trying to get through there?
Right.
They informed you to go to the church? or
Right.
People were gathering at the church? Okay.
Yeah.
And so you went to the church. Do you have any idea approximately what time you were there at the church?
No, honestly, I don't.
Okay, all right. During this time, do you make any attempts to contact your father?
Yes, tried to contact him about a dozen times. Never received anything back from him.
Okay. Is that normal?
No.
Okay. And he would have been working that day, right?
Right.
At the U.S. Utilities place?
Right.
Okay. Do you know if anybody else tried to contact him that day?
I'm not real sure.
Okay. And you had called him at least a dozen times and not received anything back?
Right.
Okay. At that point, do you get concerned?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And so what do you decide to do as a result of that concern?
I would try to go down to see if my father was still at the house, well, down to his camper, because sometimes when his blood pressure and stuff starts messing with him, he'd get real bad sick, and he'd just lay there in bed, take off work, whatever he had to do at the moment.
Okay. And do you know whether or not he gets a good cell phone service out there?
No, barely anything.
Okay. So you thought maybe he was just homesick because of his blood pressure and
Right.
okay. And maybe not getting your phone calls at that
Right.
point. Okay. Do you recall who you went out there with?
It was me, Donald, and I want to say Sean Watson. I'm not real sure if he was with us at that moment or not. It was kind of like more like a rush at that moment after I realized that he was there.
Okay. So who is Donald Stone?
He's my cousin.
Okay. And who is Sean Watson?
My cousin.
Okay. And do you recall who drove?
I think it was me, I do believe.
You thought it was you?
Yeah.
Okay. And you went down to your dad's, what did you do when you got there?
I seen his truck still in the driveway, so I got out and walked up to the door to see if I can get a response from him so I can let him know what was going on. Well, I opened up the door, I hollered in there at him, and he didn't respond. And Donald, he stepped up in there and looked, and he ran past me and told me to get out, like he'd been shot, type deal.
He told you he had been shot?
He said there was blood all over his face.
And so what did you do then?
I left the camper at that moment,
Okay.
and we looked around and see if there was anything that we could see. Then we walked back to the road. Then Donald, he tried getting a hold of the cops.
Okay. And were you able to get a hold of the cops?
I think he finally did ever get a hold of him. I do believe he did.
Okay.
Then, in the meanwhile, I was sitting there waiting on them. My sister showed up there, and then they took me down here to the sheriff's department.
Okay. Which sister showed up?
Tatiana.
Okay. And when you were waiting for the police to come, where were you located at that time?
Standing at the end of the driveway.
Okay. And when you first got there, do you recall where you parked or anything?
We pulled down in the driveway right behind his truck.
Okay. When you were inside of that, your dad's home, did you step up at all into his bedroom?
I don't believe I stepped up in his bedroom. I may have stepped on the step right there, maybe.
Okay.
No, I don't believe I stepped into his bedroom.
Okay. Were you able to see any part of him from where you were?
I was able to see his leg and the top of his head, and the blanket it was actually placed, looked like it had been placed on him.
Okay. There was a blanket on him?
Right.
Okay. Were you able to see his face at that time at all?
No, I could just see his forehead and his hair.
Okay. So you did not see any injuries or the blood that Donald saw?
Correct.
Okay. And you said that you could see his leg. Was there anything else on the bed that you saw near his leg?
I seen probably, I don't know how much, but like a few ones and fives and stuff like that, some money, paper money.
Okay.
And his pants was laying there beside it.
Do you know somebody named Brett Hatfield?
Yes, I do.
And how do you know him?
A friend of the family.
Okay. For how long?
I would say, I'd probably say close to 7 years or so, something like that.
Okay. And did he arrive at some point?
Yes, he did. Whenever we were sitting there waiting on the cops to come and all that, he showed up on his four-wheeler and just did like a scam over my dad's property behind his trailer and stuff like that.
Okay. And do you know what he was looking for at the time?
Cameras, seeing if the cameras were still around to see if there was any, if he could find out if there was any footage, more or less.
Okay. So if any of the cameras caught anything that
Right.
happened? Okay. And did you personally touch anything in your dad's camper or disturb anything?
Just the door.
Okay. And what about the dog at that time? Where was his
Dog was still inside.
Okay. What is that dog's name?
Brownie.
Okay. And does Brownie stay inside or outside?
Most of the time, at nighttime, she usually is inside.
Okay. And by daytime?
Daytime, my dad usually lets her out during the day, so whenever goes to work and stuff, then he'll let her back in when he comes back.
Okay. All right. So if he's gone, does he, talk to me about the lock on that door. Does he lock the place when he leaves?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
He uses a padlock on the outside.
Okay. So when he's inside the trailer at night, is that?
As far as I'm aware, I think the locks on the door works whenever he's on the inside.
Okay.
So I figure he'd lock the door whenever he's asleep. So.
Right. Okay. But do you know if he had it locked or not?
Well, whenever we got there, the door, we opened it, and it had no issue opening.
Okay. So you didn't have to use force or anything to open it?
Right.
Okay. You said you went to the police station that day?
Right.
Correct. And did you go in a cruiser or did you drive yourself?
I went in a cruiser.
Okay. And do you recall, was that sheriff's or police or?
It was sheriff.
Sheriff's. And where did you go to give an interview?
Right over to the old sheriff department.
Okay. And did they take anything from you? Any DNA or fingerprints or clothing or anything?
I honestly can't remember.
Okay. Do you recall if they took pictures of you or anything?
No, I can't remember.
Okay. All right. And how long after the police came did they remove you from the scene and take you there? Do you recall?
It was as soon as they got there, they took me in. Probably a half hour to 45 minutes, probably something like that, I'd say, time they got there.
Okay, so they arrived, and then approximately 30 or 45 minutes later, they took you to the station to be interviewed.
I don't know, that as soon as they got there,
Okay.
like maybe 10, 15 minutes, we was already gone.
Okay, okay. Okay. I'm going to ask you to step down from this end if you don't mind, while I ask you some questions. This is D as in dog 286. First of all, do you recognize that property? Okay. And can you tell us, first of all, where is the home that you found him in?
Right here.
Okay. And this thing over here, that's also part of his property, is that correct?
Yes, the camper he was living in before he got together.
Can you speak up just?
Yep. You said that was the camper he lived in before he got this one?
Yes.
Okay. And what is this here?
That is where he was running his marijuana down the bottom of that shack there.
Okay. And when you pulled in, can you tell us approximately where you would have parked when you first pulled in the driveway?
Right up there. Well, when we first pull in, you pull in up here, and you come down through there.
Okay. And then when you were waiting for the police, where did you wait for them?
At the end of the driveway.
Okay, so off this picture, basically. Okay. Let's walk down here just a second. These other jurors can also see. Show us where his home is. Okay. And the other place that he used to live before he got that. And then where the marijuana was. And where you And then when you were waiting for the police, where would that have been? But off this, okay. Well, no, not yet, sorry. Sorry. State's Exhibit D-287. So this is just a diagram of your father's home.
Yeah.
Obviously, the front porch you entered. And then can you tell us, when you initially entered, where you went? Say it again, a little louder, please.
I went to right out here, Bob was dead.
Okay. And then Donald came in.
Yeah, he came in behind me, and when he came in behind me, he went around me, up on top platform there.
Okay, so he went actually up into the bedroom or standing on the same floor as the bedroom?
Right.
Okay, but you did not do that?
Correct.
Okay. And then when you exited, you just exited the same way you came in, I assume?
Correct.
Okay, so you did not, you weren't over here
No.
at all? Okay, let's go ahead and do that over here. I'm sorry, on this way. Again, if you want to just show where you went, when you entered,
Right up there.
and then when Donald entered. All right, okay, thank you. Yeah, let's do the photos of the police first. Well, no, let's go ahead and do D. DC. D1, which is 1872. Do you recognize that? I'm sorry, I did not tell you. Yep, they're displayed for you right there.
Okay.
Can you look at that and tell me if you recognize that location?
Yes, it's my father's place.
Okay, and I've neglected to ask you, Luke, did your father have a sensor at the end of his driveway?
Yes, he did.
Okay, and tell us about that. What did that do if you passed by it?
It's kind of like a doorbell type deal
Okay,
that was inside of his house.
okay,
So whenever someone would pass by at the end of the driveway, it would make a ding sound inside of his trailer.
okay. Do you know if that was working?
I was told that somebody told me that it wasn't working like a day or two or whatever prior to that.
A day or two prior to that?
Right.
Okay. So, okay. State's Exhibit 1888, D17. And do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and are the vehicles in that, do both of those vehicles that you can see there belong to your father?
Yes, the black truck was my father's. The blue one was my buddy John's.
The blue one?
Yes.
Okay. Was your buddy John's?
Yes.
What's his last name?
Bailey.
Okay. And why was it there at your father's place?
Because my dad was working out a deal with John on the truck about buying it off of him.
He was buying the truck off of John?
Correct.
Okay. $1904, D33. And again, is the truck in the forefront the one that your father would drive?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and then the car there, do you recognize that?
Yes, it was his little Cavalier he had
Okay,
that I think he got off of my Uncle Dave, I do believe.
okay. And then D48, 1919. And is that the picture of the little camper that he lived in prior to getting the bigger one?
Yes,
Okay. And D50, which is 1921. And you can see the structure there, the little shack, I think you referred it to, as far as where the marijuana was grown there.
correct.
Okay. To the right of your father's home, as you face it, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay. Are those hummingbird feeders as well in the bush
Yes.
over there? Okay. D63, which is 1934. Okay, this is obviously taken from in front of your father's home,
Yes.
looking out towards the road.
yeah,
Okay, when you say that you waited at the end of the driveway, you can see that there are vehicles up there on the road, and there's people, I think that's BCI vehicles at that point. But can you tell me if you can see in that picture where you would have been?
yeah. You can see where there's two people standing there.
Yep,
It'd be on this side of the road towards my dad's camper though.
okay,
That's where we would have been at.
okay, so just in that general area,
Right.
okay, all right. Did your dad have any cameras on his property?
Yes, he had one outside up in a tree that I knew about
Okay,
that was close to his camper. And he
Okay.
had another one inside the grow room that I knew about.
okay. And where would those images be captured?
As soon as someone would walk in, they captured as whenever they would walk into the grow room.
Okay,
And the other one would be as soon as you would walk in between the camper and the grow room there, then that would where you'd be captured at by the one in the tree.
okay. And had you ever seen those images? Like, had you ever seen?
Any of the images off of the camera? No.
Mm-hmm, okay. D 128, 1999. Got the front door of your father's home?
Yes.
And D 130, which is 2001. Again, is that the front door of your father's home?
Yes.
And D 133, which is 2004. Can you see the padlock on the ground in that photograph?
Yes.
Okay. And was that how it was when you arrived at that location?
Yes.
Okay. You did not remove that?
No.
Okay. D 132, which is 2003. And what is that?
It's my father's phone.
Okay. And where is that located in that photograph?
In the window in his bedroom.
Okay. And do you know why he would have kept it there?
That's the only place he really got service at down there.
Okay. So he would regularly put the phone in the window just in order to get good reception?
Right.
D-138, which is 2010. And do you see in that photograph where you would have been when you first entered?
Yes.
And where would you say that was?
Between the little statue and the cabinets.
Okay. And then the steps that you're talking about appear to be off to the right there in that picture?
Yes.
Okay, and does that lead to your father's bedroom?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And that's where Donald Stone would have gone?
Correct.
D-163, which is 2035. Oh, yeah, should not be.
Will council approach here in just a minute?
I don't know. Sorry. I don't know what I did with it. You don't know what number I said? Correct. And can you tell us what that is a photo of?
Yes, it's my father's bedroom.
Okay. And D-171-2043. And what is that a photo of?
Of my father.
Okay. Does that represent what you saw that day?
Yeah, I don't remember the blanket being that way though.
Okay. But you did not touch or move the blanket?
Correct.
And did you see Donald Stone move or touch anything?
No.
Okay. The money and everything that you described are there, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's good, Andy. And you did not go up any further and you did not see his face at all? Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. D-86, which is 1957. And again, is that the place where the marijuana was located?
Yes.
And D-88, which is 1959. Do you see the camera located there?
Yes, I do.
On the outside, and where do you see that?
At the corner of the building, at the top.
The corner at the top? Okay,
Yeah.
and is this the one where you said that it basically caught you on the outside in
No.
between his house and that location?
No, the one I was talking about was a trail camera.
Okay. And you don't see that in this picture?
No.
And where would that have been located?
There was a tree a little up above it, and it had been up inside the tree,
Okay,
pointing down.
okay. So it was more, would it then have been, if you're facing his home,
Right. It had been,
kind of behind it?
yeah,
Okay. On the right side? Is
Yeah.
that correct?
yeah.
Okay. Mhm. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay, D89, 1960. So do you know where that, what that was capturing, or if that was capturing anything?
No, I did not.
And then D90, which is 1961. Do you see a camera in there?
Yes, I do.
And is that a camera that you knew was there, or that was capturing images?
No.
Okay. So are you talking about inside the grow?
Yeah, there was a camera inside the grove, which was another trail camera as well.
Okay. And do you know where those were located?
One, the trail camera that was inside was right above the door.
Okay. D95, which is 1966. And what is that?
Inside of the grow room.
Okay, is that when you first enter?
Yeah.
Okay. And D102, which is 1973. Do you see anywhere in there where the camera would have been?
No, that's actually the kind of like towards the place where it's towards facing it.
Okay. And then did the, was there a downstairs to that?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have any idea how many plants were there?
No, I do not.
Okay. D120. Sorry, 1991. And can you tell us what that is?
Grow room?
Okay. Located on his father's
Underneath.
property?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that in the downstairs area?
Yes.
Okay. And then D118, 1989. And can you tell us what that is?
Grow room?
And you indicated you had been in that grow room before.
Correct.
Does that fairly depict how you recall it being, or how,
Yes.
okay. I'm just gonna show you a few photographs that believe they took at the, do you remember where you went? Was it to the sheriff's office when they took you there?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, please, sorry. And is that you in that photograph?
Yes.
Okay, and next photo, please. Yep, P10.
P. The first one was P9. This one's P10. It would be P9, 10, 11.
And those are your shoes there?
Yes.
That they photographed, okay, and P11? Also your shoes?
Yes.
And P12?
Yes.
Also your shoes, okay. Thank you. You did not, or did you go into any of the homes up on Union Hill Road, either Chris's or Frankie's or Dana's on that day?
No.
Okay. And have not even been able to get close to them? Is that
Correct.
correct? Okay. And those were the clothes that you were wearing when you went to your father's home that day?
Yes.
Okay, and you had not changed your clothes or anything?
No.
Before the police arrived and
No.
took you there? Okay. Luke, can you tell us, were there times that you knew your dad to be a heavy sleeper?
Yes.
Okay, and tell us about that.
Time that it had his heavy sleeper was whenever he wasn't feeling good.
Okay,
But most of the time, whenever he was feeling okay, then somebody would be outside or whatever, he'd be up.
okay. So he was either a fairly light sleeper if he felt good, but if he felt bad, and you said that was related to his blood pressure?
Correct.
Okay. And during the times that he was a heavy sleeper, could you walk into his trailer without him rousing?
No, if he was not a heavy sleeper.
When he was a heavy
Oh,
sleeper,
yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Did you ever have that experience where you had walked in and yelled for him and he didn't wake up?
No.
Before?
Not
Okay.
whenever I went in there and hollered at him. No.
Okay.
No, I had went in there and hollered at him, and he would wake up.
Okay, all right. Was there a time when Chris Rhoden had gotten beat up and your father reached against that guy?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know if there was anybody with your father when he retaliated against that guy?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Have you step away from the witness stand again, sorry. We're back to D286. Can you tell us if you can see in this photo where that trail cam that you said was in the tree? You remember? Okay. So the tree kind of right behind that shack there,
Facing toward this way.
facing kind of between that location. Okay, was it focused on the door of the shack or was it more between?
It was like more focused on the door and the pathway.
Okay, so as you would approach that area?
Right.
Okay, let's walk down here too, sorry. And go ahead and show these two. I have no other questions, Your Honor.
The defense may cross-examine.
It's 12:15, perhaps this is a good time for lunch.
Do it after lunch. All
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a lunch break now. It is 12:15 approximately, so at 1:15, be down at the jury room, from which you will be brought up by court personnel. While you are on your own at lunch today, throughout this break, do not discuss this case with among yourselves or with anyone else. Do not permit this case to be discussed with you or in your presence. Do not form or express an opinion concerning this case. Do no research concerning the facts or the law of the case. Do not read, listen to, or review any reports or accounts of the case, and have no contact with any of the participants in the trial. Anything further from counsel for either side right now?
No, thank you, Judge.
No, Your Honor.
All right, then we are in recess until 1:15. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, recall that when we recessed for lunch, the witnesses, Rhoden was in the witness chair. The state of Ohio has just finished a direct examination of the witness. So now we present the cross-examination.
Thank you. Mr. Rhoden, I've got a few questions for you, just following up on some of the answers that you have given to the prosecutor, okay?
Yes.
First thing I'd like to clarify is you had spoke about an incident or an occasion at a pond or a swimming hole. Do you recall that in your direct testimony?
Yes.
And who was there?
It was me, Jake, Hannah, Billy, not Billy, I'm sorry, George.
George?
And I think it was his ex now, I think it is.
Okay. Do you remember her name?
No.
And can you tell me, when was that?
It's been years ago.
Okay. If you had to...
If I probably guess on it, probably around 2014, maybe.
Did you say Frankie was there?
No, Frankie was not, I don't believe.
Now, it's Uncle Chris, right?
My Uncle Brady's place.
Okay, all right. You're familiar with the fireworks display that Chris would put on?
Yes,
And you had attended those, right?
correct.
And while you attended those, do you recall seeing George there?
Honestly, no.
Okay, so you don't recall having a conversation with him?
No, there's just very few people I go around and talk to there, so if he was there, I did not see him.
Okay. And we spoke of hunting, and that question was asked of you in the direct testimony. Do you hunt?
Yes, I do.
And to your knowledge, did Frankie hunt?
Yes.
And did you ever hunt with Frankie?
No.
Okay, all right. So by that, I'm assuming you never did hunt with Frankie and George?
Correct.
Okay. Now, on your direct testimony, you spoke about being on Bethel Hill with Chris.
Yes.
You recall that?
Yes.
And that was an occasion where Backo was there, right?
Correct.
And there was some conversation that you and Chris had. Do you recall that?
Me and Chris?
Yes, there was a conversation that was had about talking about the Wagners. Do you remember that?
No.
Okay. Tell me again, what was that conversation?
Me, my dad, and Chris, we went out there to his place.
Okay. When was that?
I can't remember that. I can't.
Could you, could you give an estimation?
I'd say probably around 2010 to 2012, around that area.
Okay. Let me ask you now about your father's camper there on Left Fork. How long had he lived there?
On Left Fork, at the camper, I do believe around 3 or 4 years.
Okay. And after, or on the day of April the 22nd, you were interviewed by some law enforcement officials, is that right?
Yes.
In fact, following that day, you had been interviewed on several occasions.
Yes.
And some of those meetings were at the Pike County Sheriff's Department.
Correct.
And are you aware that during those interviews that notes were being taken in regards to the answers that you gave?
Yes.
Okay. And so I'm going to refer to some of those interviews that you provided, okay?
Okay.
Do you recall those meetings before I get started?
Yes.
Okay. We saw a picture of a shed that was next to your father's camper. Do you remember that shed?
Correct.
And inside of that shed was a basement, so to speak, or a lower level.
Right.
And that's where we saw those plants, is that right?
Yes.
And inside that shed, I believe you said was a trail cam.
Yes.
Right? And so for those members of the jury who don't know what a trail cam is, could you tell us?
It's where it captures like movement. So if something get in front of it at a certain distance, it would capture it. So it would take a picture, or sometimes even a video.
Okay. And to your knowledge, was a picture ever taken of you in that shed?
Not sure.
Okay.
Can't be.
Let me ask you about this. Any occasion were you ever washing rocks?
Washing rocks.
Yes.
I help pack out rocks.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I help pack rocks out.
Pack rocks out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a guy in the basement handing up rocks to me, and I was taking them and dumping them.
Okay. Now, those rocks were used for the purpose of growing marijuana, is that right?
Correct.
And so the marijuana that was grown in that shed, they actually weren't grown in soil, is that the case?
Correct.
In fact, they were grown in these rocks, and there's water in the rocks, and that's how the marijuana would grow, is that right?
Correct.
Is that also known as hydroponic?
Yes.
All right. And you're familiar with the term of commercial marijuana, right?
Not real sure.
Commercial, you've never used that term?
No.
PCI?
No.
Okay, all right. Tell us, as far as the hydroponic marijuana goes that you just said you're familiar with, would you agree with me that that's a higher grade of marijuana?
Correct.
And it receives or fetches more money on the street?
Yes.
And on one occasion, you had actually conducted a sale of marijuana as the middleman from your father and Austin, is that right?
Right.
And the sale of that marijuana was how much per pound?
I think it's 2,600.
26. If I said you told BCI 2,800 to 3,000, would that be accurate?
That's a possibility.
Okay. Now, these plants that we saw, you would agree, or would you agree with me that you had told BCI that those plants would be moved out of that building every 3 to 4 months?
Correct.
And so these are just young juvenile plants that are grown to the 3 to 4 month range and then taken out, right?
Correct.
And this is a cycle that would go over and over.
Yes.
And where would those plants be taken?
Up to Chris's, I do believe.
And Chris who?
Rhoden.
Okay. And where would they go when they were taken to Chris's, if you know?
They would actually, the plants itself wouldn't actually be transferred up there, just the product of the plants.
Okay. we spoke of the sale of this marijuana on at least one occasion. Are you familiar with dabs?
Yes.
And could you tell us whether you're aware of your father dealing in dabs or being offered to deal in dabs?
I think he was offered to deal in it, but I'm not the recollection that he did.
Okay, and dab would be what?
Dab is a concentrating of THC from the product.
Okay. So we've established that your father was engaged in trafficking of marijuana, right?
Yes.
At some point, though, is it your understanding that he was going to get out of that, no longer do that?
Yes.
All right.
He actually talked to me about him giving that land and everything to Gary because he was getting ready to leave.
And was Gary to pick up the operation and go from there?
Was supposed to, yes.
Okay. Can you tell us who Big Money Mike is?
Couldn't tell you.
All right.
I've heard his name, but couldn't tell you who he is.
Okay. You've heard his name from who?
Yeah.
Who from who?
Oh. I didn't hear about it until everything happened,
Oh, okay.
so I couldn't.
Okay. And can you tell us if you know, again, reflecting upon those conversations you had with PCI, why it is your father was going to get out of this business?
I don't know.
Do you recall talking to a PCI agent about that?
I think I may have, but I don't know why he was getting out.
Okay. Now, we spoke of the one time that you had conducted that transaction. Are you typically the one who would be the middleman selling the marijuana?
No.
Who would be?
I honestly don't know. I know there's been a few people who have gotten in contact with him in order to get someone else some stuff.
Mike said Gary would conduct those transactions. Would you agree with that?
I say Gary has done it in the past, yes.
Okay. And Chris Sr., were you aware of the extent of his drug trafficking?
Not, I mean, just the marijuana part, you know.
Okay.
And I know that he dealt in some narcotics.
Okay, tell me about that. What other narcotics?
I honestly don't know.
Okay, but you mentioned narcotics, right?
Right.
So that tells me you know something and you've heard something.
Right.
Okay. But I guess what you're telling me is you never saw that firsthand?
Correct.
Okay. And speaking of this operation, there were people who assisted or worked for your father and, I guess, taking care of these plants. Is that right?
Yes, he has some help.
Okay. Alyssa Hussey, would that be one?
I do believe so, yes.
How about Jason O'Brien?
Yes.
All right. And I'm assuming these people were paid for what they were doing?
Yes.
All right. Earlier, I asked you about commercial marijuana. Are you
Yeah.
familiar with what compressed marijuana is?
Yes.
Okay. Would that be what was being grown? there
No.
on
No.
property?
No.
No, okay. And did you know of any dealings with compressed marijuana?
Yeah.
Okay, can you tell me about that?
I know, I know they sold compressed, you know.
Okay,
That's about as far as that goes.
how about purchasing that?
No.
Okay. Can you tell me who James Tackett is? Do you know a James Tackett?
Yeah.
All right, tell me who James is.
The younger one or the older one?
The older one?
The older one?
Yeah.
That was my buddy, Brandon Tackett's dad.
Okay. And are you aware of anybody owing your father any money?
Well, probably so. I'd say everybody owed somebody something.
How about James Tackett?
I don't know.
Okay. So you never had a conversation about that?
No.
Now, as far as your involvement with the selling of marijuana, you recall talking to BCI about that, right?
Correct.
And you're aware that's illegal?
Correct.
And you were never charged with anything out of that?
No.
I think I just have one other question. It deals with that padlock on the outside of your father's trailer.
Yes.
I saw a picture where it appeared that was broken laying on the ground there on the patio porch area, right?
I don't think it was technically broke.
Oh, okay.
I think it was just unlocked and it was in the hook and it was knocked off of that location.
Okay, all right. So it wasn't broke. If somebody's inside, like your father, is there a way of locking that door?
I think that the door itself, that you're able to lock it from the inside, I do believe. I'm not for sure.
Okay.
But whenever he left the camper or whatever, he would have to lock it with the padlock itself.
Okay. Just one moment. Thank you, sir. We have no further questions.
Any redirect in the statement?
Thank you, Mr. Rhoden, you were asked about the time at the pond when Jake and Hannah and George and his former, I think you said.
Yes.
Do you know if they were ever married?
I don't know.
Okay, and do you recall her name?
No.
Okay. And you said that was quite some time ago. Do you remember if that was before or after Sophia had been born?
That was, I want to say before.
And you were also asked about the conversation that you had up on Billy Wagner's property.
Correct.
Okay. That conversation was with Billy Wagner, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And he's the one who said,
Right.
Kenneth and Chris were a couple of great guys, but if he ever had to mess with them, he'd have to shoot him.
Correct.
You were asked about price per pound of
Correct.
marijuana.
Yeah.
And approximately, do you have any idea of how many pounds you would get?
Off of each harvest, around 3.
And you were asked about your father. He had shared with you that his intent was to get out of the marijuana business.
Correct.
And do you have any idea how long before he was killed that he talked to you about that?
A couple months before.
And you you were asked about somebody owing your father money. Did your father routinely help people out,
Correct, yes.
fix up cars and let them buy them off him, as long as they needed to buy it off of them?
Right,
Okay. And just generally help out people if they needed it?
yes.
As we sit here today, do you know for certain whether or not your dad's camper locked from the inside?
I can't be 100% with that.
Okay. And Mr. Rhoden, we've talked a few times about George Wagner. Is George Wagner present in the courtroom today?
Yes.
If so, can you point to where he is sitting and describe for us what he's wearing?
Right there, the vest one.
Your Honor, could the record please reflect that he has identified the defendant, George Wagner?
Any objections to that?
No, we'll stipulate that.
The record shall reflect that the witness has identified the defendant as George Wagner.
I have no other questions, Your Honor.
Anything across?
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, you were asked, just again, on redirect regarding harvest, and you said that you would get how much of the harvest?
Around 3 pounds.
Okay, and that harvest would occur every 3 to 4 months, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, all right. And you also indicated, you pointed out who George Wagner is, right?
Right.
And you looked over there at him, right?
Yes.
And does he look now like he did back when you saw him?
Yes.
Okay, has it changed appearance-wise at all?
Yes, he has.
How is that?
Weight-wise.
All right, he was much larger when you last saw him, right?
Yes.
Thank you, we have no further questions.
Any further questions from the state?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down.
Thank you.